Hey, this is Mike from Brew Crime. Support for this episode comes from Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for your family jewels. When you're trimming your downstairs, you don't want to hurt yourself. There are some bloody tender zones. Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. They have brought out the Lawnmower 2.0 that has proprietary skin-safe technology to make sure your trimmer will not nick or snag your balls. Finally, an end to the damage caused while manscaping. This should be a given, but don't use the same trimmer on your face as using your balls. It's just not a good idea. They also sell a crop preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. If you're willing to put deodorant under your pits, why not do your partner a favor and put it on your downstairs too? If you use the promo code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com, you will get 20% off as well as free shipping. Always use the right tools for the right job. Your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code BIGHEADS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code BIGHEADS.
This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Welcome to Brew Crime. I'm Mike.
I'm Beck.
And I'm Nina.
And on this episode, we are going to do extradition cases. So I think Beck's going to start this one. So why don't you tell us what your extradition case is going to be, and then we'll get into it.
So my case is going to be about Marc Emery. And the beer that I chose is Moon Underwater's Dimebag Sour Key IPA.
So I'm actually excited to try this beer because I've heard about it. It sounds like a really neat beer, but also it's kind of cool, and I wish this came out a long time ago because on our pilot episode, I actually covered the murder of Dimebag Darrell. So if you want to go all the way back to the episode that came out on June 25th, 2018, you can tune in. Mm-hmm. But it was our pilot episode.
Yeah, so it was, be kind, please.
It was before Nina was part of the podcast. You know?
Yeah, I actually wasn't born yet. It's okay when they were talking about Dimebag. I'm like, why is Beck buying a Dimebag?
So out of character.
It's so out of character, yeah.
So
I'm excited to try it.
This is the sour key one, right?
Yeah, sour key.
They actually put a shit ton of sour keys into this beer when they were making it.
I'm excited. I love sour.
I do too. And I love sour keys.
I do like sour keys. It's a nice bottle,
Heady.
but
yeah. And it's too bad too, because if you look at the bottle really closely, there's actually a picture of Dimebag Darrell on the bottle, but you don't notice it at first. You've got to really look closely. Otherwise, it just looks like kind of a stylized logo.
Yeah, I didn't notice it when I was buying it.
it's like that other beer that I thought was a dude, but it was a lady. Remember the last beer?
Oh, that was that Cyclops beer, wasn't it, from a long time ago? Is that what you mean?
No, it was the last episode one where blowing your brains out for the dad, killed his son, Halloween.
I don't remember what beer we had.
I don't know. The exploding
I forget
head.
what that one was called. I totally can see it.
Yeah. It's okay. I missed boobs on the whole logo. It's funny.
It says that this is a funky, juicy IPA conditioned in groove metal with Bretois and more than a few dime bags of fresh sour keys. The worst advice I ever received from my dad was to play by the books, Dimebag Darrell. All right, so it's golden color. It's a little hazy. You can see your finger through it. It's not murky like in New England IPA. It's got a fluffy white head on it. It smells pretty traditional on the IPA side. It's got sort of graininess. There's some hops in there. Which, yeah, I'm surprised for having sour keys. I'm not smelling anything that would say it's going to be sour. A little bit of citrus notes or some kind of fairly standard fruit notes. It's not like jumping out as tropical or citrus, but there's something fruity in there.
I think it's the sour keys. They're pretty.
You know what? It's actually not very sour at all.
It's not very sour, no.
Interesting. For having sour keys, like the simple sugars would just be eaten up and made into alcohol, but you'd expect some of that sourness to come through on this. Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of resin kind of notes in the background, but it's mostly just kind of grainy, a little bit of hop matter, not much bitterness.
Is there any pith in it?
It's not too pithy, no.
I just wanted an opportunity to say that word today.
Just trying to pith me off, right?
That's a little bit piss you off.
It's a nice beer, but I actually thought there'd be a little more. And actually, on the next sip, there is a little more fruity notes coming through this time.
It's definitely not as sour as some of the other ones we've had.
Yeah, no, it's for having sour keys in it. It's got almost no sour notes. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. It's a bummer that it isn't more sour, but also it's tasty.
Yeah, it's good. I do love sour beers, so I was hoping for it to be more sour, but that's all right.
Do you want to put some of my sour Haribo candies in it? Maybe that will help the snake.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
We'll brew with that one day, maybe. No. All right, well, get into this.
Marc Emery, Prince of Pot he may be, Prince of Take a Fucking Hint he is not.
No, this is a local story, and oh my God, does he not take a hint?
So, Marc Scott Emery was born February 13th, 1958. He was quite the little entrepreneur from pretty much the beginning. When he was only 9 years old, he started his first business from his parents' home. I'm not sure why the source that I got specified from his parents' home. Like, as if he opened a kiosk in the mall or something at 9 years old. You need to specify that it was at his parents' house?
Maybe it was at the street corner selling lemonade.
Okay. But
I know,
probably
you're right.
It would still be on his parents' yard.
Fair.
Anyway, the business was called Stamped Treasure. He bought and sold stamps through the mail. 2 years later, he started Marc's Comic Room. Don't let the name fool you. It was also a mail order business. There was no...
Comics?
No room?
No. No physical room, yeah. But he earned about $120 a week at 11 years old. So
crazy. That's a lot of money.
Wow, and that's not recent either, so...
No, that would have been in like this, like
70s?
late 60s, early 70s when he was making
that's good money.
Yeah. So at 17, he dropped out of high school to buy a used bookstore. Yeah, like you do. Okay. It was called City Lights Bookshop in London, Ontario. He became involved in politics in the 70s, and that's something that would continue throughout his whole life. At 24 and again at 27, he ran for Ward 3 Alderman in Hamilton, Ontario, and was unsuccessful both times, but he still had his bookstore.
Of course, yeah.
That would be cool, owning a bookstore.
Yeah.
Just like...
Yeah.
That would be so chill.
It would be, but I don't know how easy it'd be to own one nowadays. I mean...
Yeah, but this was in the 70s
so
when retail was still a thing and people still read books, not your bullshit audiobooks there, Mike.
Or now a bookstore now is like your house with all the books and then you ship them out on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you listen to the audiobook and then you buy the book just to have it.
Collector.
Is that what you do?
No.
Okay. Just hypothetically.
It's like a half yes and no.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to admit to it. Anyways, so Marc Emery.
He worked for a few different political parties over the years. He was the Freedom Party's action director from 1984 to 1990. He started this position off with a bang by campaigning against London's bid to host the 1991 Pan American Games. Just a reminder, this is London, Ontario. That's in Canada for all our American listeners. I'm not talking about London, England. London, Ontario.
He did not run against the Queen.
No. I mean, not the Queen. I don't know who he was running against.
Fair.
The campaign successfully argued that the city stood to lose millions of dollars if they hosted this event. And that's fair. I mean, it sounds weird at first when you're talking about someone being like, we shouldn't have the Pan Am Games, but you're just trying to protect the city, really. You know, if your hometown is going to have to invest millions of dollars for this event, and what do you get out of it?
Yeah. Well,
you get to say that you did it. Whoop-de-doo.
But also, doesn't it bring, like, jobs and visitors to your small town?
It
jobs.
can, but it all depends on how much you spend versus how much can come in.
Exactly.
I think Alberta was recently looking to try to host the Olympics again, if I remember properly, and they decided not to for that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like, if you have some of the buildings or infrastructure set up already, great. But if you've got, like, nothing to start with, then it's just expense.
Yeah,
and then you're in the shitter.
back then it probably wasn't as much, but it's tens to hundreds of millions of dollars now to host these stupid events, which can be an amazing draw to your city, but it can also be a huge loss. Mm-hmm. You got to get lucky.
I remember the good old 2010 Olympics in Vancouver.
2010 Olympics were great here. We got so lucky with our weather and everything, and it ended
They
up...
had to bring artificial snow on the mountains because you didn't have snow. I don't know about the luck of the weather.
Oh, no. To have the sun we had in that time in February was...
Fair.
Crazy.
At least it wasn't just rain.
I don't know. I was, school was paused, so I didn't have class, so I just drank every day. It was tough.
That was when I first moved here.
I had to drive during that time for work.
Well, I mean, I drove when I wasn't drinking, duh.
No, but I drive.
How do you get
for
to
work.
the liquor store? Anyways.
Yes.
Good talk.
In May 1987, the city workers went on strike. Mark decided it would be a good idea to rent trucks and have volunteers do the jobs of the striking workers. The striking workers decided it would be a good idea to threaten to dump garbage on Mark's front lawn.
Wow.
Well played.
Yes.
I don't see how he thought that would be a good idea. Like, when people are on strike, how is it a good idea? You're not only, like, air quote, crossing the picket line.
Yeah.
You're basically non-verbally saying anyone could do this job, which is not true. Like, that's a hard fucking job.
And that's a really good way to call someone trash.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, just stupid. That was a stupid idea, Mark. In 1991, Mark was convicted of obscenity for various...
Obscene acts.
Yeah, no. No? You guys are going to love the ridiculousness of this, actually. So he was convicted of obscenity for the heinous crime of selling Two Live Crew's album As Nasty As They Want to Be. Yeah, because he sold this album. He was convicted of obscenity because...
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Who's the album from?
Two Live Crew.
It's a rap group.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Two Live... What years were they big? Like in the...
It was early 90s.
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, so because in Ontario at the time, it was a banned album because it was too obscene. And he went ahead and sold it
like
anyway.
It was banned, not like it's a band.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Thank
illegal
you,
to
thank
sell.
You, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you, thank you.
BANNED.
Okay. Got it.
Which is just like
Stupid.
so ridiculous.
I would still want to own that album at that time then because it's banned, but
Yeah.
I just don't like rap. But still, that's crazy.
I mean, some rap's really awesome, but to each their own.
Okay.
You're a heavy metal kind of guy. I know, I get it.
And punk. And
Okay.
goth and, yeah.
Okay.
Lots of stuff.
But through all of this, he had his bookstore. After 17 years in business, he decided to sell it in 1992.
How crazy is that he's got a bookstore and out the back he's selling illegal CDs.
Yeah.
Or cassette tapes, I'm not sure.
It just said albums, so I wasn't sure. In the
Could
early
have been
90s,
vinyl
it could have
still.
been CDs. It could have been vinyl.
Vinyl rap.
Selling illegal stuff out the back door. Go on.
Yeah. Ooh, foreshadowing. 2 years later, he moved to Vancouver, British Columbia, and started Hemp BC. They sold cannabis-related paraphernalia. That same year, he sponsored a successful court challenge and had the prohibition on selling drug-related literature overturned. Shortly after returning from the High Times Cannabis Cup, Mark started selling seeds out of the store. That's a thing.
I know
it is.
but just that whole thing, it's just ridiculous.
Is
Yeah.
that... I don't smoke pot, so I don't know, but is that the one in Amsterdam or something? Do you know?
I don't know where it is.
Because I know there is one in Amsterdam that BC Pot would win in, so I'm kind of wondering if that's it.
No, I'm more so curious to the fact that there was a law case of like weed paraphernalia books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
You couldn't sell magazines, books, whatever, pertaining to pot.
because that would get people not to smoke.
Oh, no, it's just
No, no.
because it was an illegal substance, so you don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's stupid, yeah.
At the time, it was, like, pot was comparable to, heroin or whatever. Hard drugs. It's,
Yeah, now it's legal
It's
across
not.
Canada.
I don't know. There's just such a better use of people's time than bullshit like that.
Yeah, I agree.
I suppose for the times, what you said, 92, 93?
That was in 92 is when he moved,
Yeah.
and then it was 2 years later, so
94.
somewhere around
94.
94.
Yeah, no.
Good times,
I had
good
nothing
times.
to do with this. I was still living in Germany at this point, actually.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
I was in Ontario.
I was in Surrey.
By 1995, the store was on the cover of the Wall Street Journal.
Badass.
But why be satisfied being on someone else's cover when you can create your very own magazine?
It sounds like a Trump idea. I have a
Well-
bigly idea.
Or an entrepreneur.
Bigly.
I have a bigly idea. Sorry.
It's the bestest idea ever thought of.
Yeah.
My daughter wasn't my daughter.
Huge.
Totally
Huge,
date her.
Yeah, huge.
My huge Hans. I don't know. I made him sound like Arnold, but just work with me here, peeps.
Yeah, so Cannabis Canada magazine was launched that same year and was later renamed Cannabis Culture magazine in 1998.
It's a lifestyle. Mom.
1996 was a big year for Mark. He ran
It
for...
was a bigly year. Sorry. We can't say big without iggly afterwards.
Okay, sure. 1996 was a bigly year for Mark.
Thank you.
You're welcome. He ran for mayor of Vancouver. It was a no-go.
Thank God.
And his shop was raided by the police for the first time. Busy year.
Yes.
They were raided again in 1997, and Mark was charged with assaulting a police officer and obviously with various charges pertaining to the illegal sales of pot seeds and paraphernalia.
Yeah.
He had to serve jail time for the assault, pay $2,200 in fines for the sale, and was banned from the 300 block of West Hastings. Bit of an issue, because that's where the shop was.
Yeah.
In October of 1997, Mark was featured on CNN and picked up the nickname Prince of Pot. Mark sold Hemp BC in 1998 to the shop manager, and the raids persisted. She soon lost her business license.
Yeah, no shit.
That's
Probably a dumb
sucks.
purchase, really, at the time.
Well, but if the negative attention and all that shit, possibly they speculated that it was more attached to him because he's a very outspoken, charismatic, he's the one that has the law issues. So
Yeah.
possibly she thought if she just took it over, she's following all the laws.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe she was just trying to make the best of a business that she believed in, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's true, I guess.
But unfortunately for her, it didn't work out that way. Mark continued to sell seeds, but just mail order only.
From his parents' house?
Not from his parents' house, no. He also continued to publish Cannabis Culture magazine. In April of 1998, 4 American Navy undercover agents working with the Vancouver police tried to buy marijuana and smoke it at the Vancouver Cannabis Cafe, and Mark was arrested again.
Why Navy? Isn't there better shit they need to do, like space aliens and deal with that? Oh, no, sorry,
It
that's
is
the
kind
other-
of weird that it was American Navy because a lot of that pot would have been grown here, but I think
why
a lot
Navy?
of
Is
a
it
lot of
Navy Sea
BC.
issues?
Well, I think a lot of BC bud was shipped down to the States illegally. So
Yeah,
they're
so
probably
this
trying
was
to-
like a vendetta that the states had against him
understand.
because he was bringing so much into
The
the
Americas.
States.
and the United States war on drugs is well documented.
Yeah,
Well documented.
yeah,
Bigly documented.
bigly documented.
It's a huge issue.
Yes.
Huge.
Huge.
There's a Y at the beginning.
Huge.
Is it just a big U?
2 U's.
Yeah.
Is it 2 U's? Is there
5
dots
U's,
over-
5 U's,
5 U's.
and then G.
It's huge.
This time, Mark was convicted of selling seeds and had to pay a $2,000 fine. In the year 2000,
When Nina came to Canada.
Good year, good year.
Thank you.
Huge
You're
year.
welcome. It was
Huge year.
huge for me and my family. Huge. One of the biggest decisions my mom's had to make.
Hi, Mira. So in 2000, he launched Pot TV, a marijuana-related video channel, and in 2002, he ran for the mayor of Vancouver again. Still a no-go on that, though. Yeah, no. It'll be a pass for us. Thanks. Between 1998 and 2005, Mark paid taxes as a marijuana seed vendor, totaling nearly $600,000.
Wow. I have to say that I'm pretty impressed with him for paying taxes on something that is illegal to sell. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so with how it read, I wasn't sure if they were saying that he paid taxes on $600,000 or that he paid $600,000 in taxes.
That makes more sense.
It doesn't
really
even matter because you're
poorly.
still paying taxes on something that is not legal to sell.
Yeah, but how smart is that
It's
of
reported
him?
income, right? So that is, it's a good play.
It is, right? It's really smart that he would, because otherwise then you end up with like an Al Capone scenario where you can't get arrested for anything and then it's tax evasion.
Yeah.
And you're in jail for some tax evasion bullshit. You know
Still
what I mean?
just crazy.
So it's, but smart.
Only one side of the law you're breaking now.
On July 23rd, 2006, he married Jody. They're estranged now. Jody and Mark owned and ran Cannabis Culture and Pot TV together.
Sounds like Mad TV, but slower.
Oh my god, I thought it was the only one that remembered Mad TV.
I never watched it, but I remember it.
There was a time where there were years where Mad TV was better than Saturday Night Live. Like,
I never watched Saturday Night Live religiously. Well, I mean, I've seen episodes, but not enough to like draw a conclusion of how I felt about it. But Mad TV's fucking Mad TV. Obviously.
So good.
It's like the Cartoon Network. You
remember
never watch cartoons if it wasn't for that network.
The magazine was Spy vs. Spy, so I don't know.
They had Spy vs. Spy on the show.
Yeah.
Anyway, great show. We can talk about it later, Nina. There was, or maybe that will be my bonus episode. Just you and I talking about Mad TV.
Ooh, it's going to be huge.
Huge. So there was a shit ton more specifics about Mark's political involvement, but it's a crime podcast, not a political one.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's a crime.
Mostly, you know. As we
I don't want to get into it, but you know.
Yeah. I don't want to get into a bigly argument about it.
It's not hugely about.
Yeah.
I just can't pick up my cup because it's so huge. My hands are small.
So I'll just mention one more thing politically because it's pertinent to the story. November of 2003, Mark endorsed NDP leader Jack Layton.
That was 16 years ago.
Why is this pertinent? It's not at all. I just miss him because he was amazing and I just loved him so much.
Yeah.
And him and his wife on that bicycle built for two. So cute. I can barely handle it.
I actually don't remember that.
I miss him.
No idea what you're talking about.
He actually has a really good guy following him up now, but
yeah,
Jamie
I agree.
Sings great, but yeah, not really.
No one will ever be Jack, though. Anywho, Mark first served jail time when, in August of 2004, he was sentenced to 92 days in jail in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Ooh, across Canada.
Yeah, that's Saskatchewan. For all the other American people that I've heard on podcasts trying to pronounce Saskatchewan, it's Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan.
Yes.
It's not.
And that is on
difficult.
the eastern side of central Canada.
Yeah. And
its capital is Saskatoon.
Saskatoon, which is where he was in jail.
There you go. I know facts, too.
Saskabush.
Don't call me that. That's where the first Sasquatch was from.
Sassy Bush. Quick shout out to one of our fans, actually, who lives near Saskatoon. Or I'm not sure what the actual boundaries of Saskatoon are, but shout out to Edith, one of our listeners.
What up, Edith?
Yeah.
What's up?
Speaking of missed, miss you too.
Aw. That was almost a missed opportunity.
Yes.
Oh, dear. Mark was convicted based on the testimony of a witness who saw him pass a joint in March of 2004.
Fuck me. I'm sorry, but this is Canada, and even when it was illegal, it was still decriminalized, and you'd see it everywhere. You'd smell it everywhere. Like, come on. Unless you were dealing it, cops didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem.
Well, I mean, okay, so the moral of the story here, kids, is don't share.
Yeah, no shit.
Or if someone offers you drugs, take them because drugs are expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be rude.
Which includes alcohol and everything.
You don't want to be rude. This is Canada.
Yes.
Right?
Sorry,
okay. Yeah.
I'm so sorry I have to take these drugs from you.
So he served 61 days of his 92-day sentence, and this was just a very minor speed bump compared to the legal troubles that... I hate you, Mike.
Mike just bounced himself on the chair for all
As
those
if he
listening.
was going over a
speed bump. Yes, he just jiggled himself. It was really awkward for everyone included.
That's what she said. We get so into it when it's a case that's not horrible.
Yeah, not murder.
You know
or
what
anything,
I mean?
Yeah.
It's like oh my god, I actually have a chance to giggle and shit.
Well, we could laugh at the other shit too, but then we'd be awful fucking
Oh my
people.
god.
Yeah.
This was a speed bump compared to the legal trouble that was coming. The DEA had requested that the Canadian police take action against Marc on multiple charges. In July of 2005, they raided the Marijuana Party bookstore and headquarters in Vancouver. Yes, that's a real thing. Marc was arrested in Lawrencetown, Nova Scotia. The United States authorities charged him with conspiracy to distribute marijuana, conspiracy to distribute marijuana seeds, and conspiracy to engage in money laundering. Canadian police declined to lay charges. The DEA released a statement that same day that this arrest was a, quote, significant blow not only to the marijuana trafficking trade in the U.S. and Canada, but also to the marijuana legalization movement. Marc was freed on $50,000 bail, so I guess it wasn't that significant.
Yeah, not
if
really.
he was so quickly released, like, especially considering it's legal now. Oh yeah, what a deep cut you made.
2005, so about, and it became legal 2017.
Nope, it was October 17th, 2018. I just looked it up just
year.
Because we were talking about it.
So what? 13 years.
And
later?
it is currently November 23rd, 2019. So it's been over a year that it's been legal in Canada now. And the biggest drug dealer in Canada is now the federal government.
Yep. It's not a real drug. It is.
No, I know. But I think it's funny that...
No, yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, if in BC, if you want to buy legal drugs, the only way to do it is buy it from the BC government, which is tied in with the federal government. Because it's basically the shop in Kamloops. And there's more and more being allowed now. I think I just saw one... I think there's a new one opening up in Poco that was just allowed. But basically, for a long time after legalization, the only place you could buy it legally was from Kamloops. Mail order from the government.
I didn't know that. It's very confusing because they're just, like, everywhere.
Oh, I know. Well, a lot of those illegal, quote-unquote illegal pot shops have been closed down since legalization.
Yeah, but I still see them open or opening.
Not as many as there used to be, though, because they didn't have business licenses. So somehow you had these businesses running without business licenses from the cities they were in. So I don't know how the hell they were even open without being raided like Marc was. It's weird.
So at the time, Marc and his associates were facing a sentence of 10 years to life. In 2008, Marc agreed to plead guilty to one charge of drug distribution and serve 5 years in the U.S. He wasn't actually extradited until May of 2010 and subsequently officially sentenced in September to 5 years minus time served. 3 weeks of this time was served in segregated housing because Marc had Jody record a message from him over the phone. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like, come on now. Yeah, so segregated housing is like solitary confinement, but you're not allowed to really call that anymore because it's inhumane or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Marc was released July 9th, 2014, and he had announced his release a week earlier on the Cannabis Culture website.
The prince is back.
Yeah.
It's so amazing he's still in jail at that point and he's able to announce his release.
I know.
Well, he didn't do it himself. He obviously had an assistant or someone.
Yeah.
But it's still funny.
Yeah. In December 2016, Marc and Jody opened 6 Cannabis Culture marijuana dispensaries in Montreal, Quebec.
Montreal. Quebecois.
Tabernacle.
Oh, God.
Tabernacle. French fries.
Poutine.
Stop. Merci beaucoup.
So these dispensaries were not legal at the time, and on the second day of business, the Montreal police raided the shops and arrested Marc and Jody at the Mont Royal Avenue location. Jody was released without charge, but Marc was held overnight. The couple continued to open locations in spite of the illegality of it. At one point, they had 19 locations in British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec. They later claimed it was an act of civil disobedience, but, I'm sure the financial gain didn't hurt either.
No.
In March 2017, Marc and Jody were arrested again at Toronto Pearson International Airport. He faced 15 charges, mostly drug-related, and she faced 5 similar counts. Search warrants were granted in Toronto, Hamilton, and Vancouver as part of Project Gator, a Toronto police project targeting marijuana dispensaries based on the underlying belief that they were involved in organized crime.
But why Gator?
I don't...
Because they're clamping down on crime? I don't know. No. Okay.
Maybe. Could be.
Taking a bite out of crime?
Oh, God.
It's funny because the guy I have for our extradition case is a cannibal.
No.
Foreshadow.
Yeah.
Gross. 5 Toronto dispensaries, as well as 1 in Hamilton, 1 in Ottawa, and 1 in Vancouver, were raided and shut down. Police seized $250,000 in cash in several different currencies. So
Wow.
sketchy. That's sketchy. They also searched 2 homes in Toronto and 1 in Stony Creek. That's in Ontario as well as 1 in Vancouver that all had some sort of connection to the cannabis culture franchise. Some of the dispensaries reopened as early as the next day.
Holy shit.
The couple were soon granted bail, but with conditions that limited or banned their access to marijuana and to the cannabis culture franchises. In December of 2017, they pled guilty to some of the drug-related charges and were placed on 2 years probation. So far, Marc doesn't really seem all that bad, right?
No, not bad.
Yeah. But
He's a great guy. Just kidding.
at the beginning of 2019,
That's this year.
that is this year, several women accused Marc of sexual harassment. Although he denied the accusations, he was pulled as the keynote speaker from the first international cannabis seminar held in Argentina in February of this year. The Legalized Summit in Vancouver withdrew his nomination for a Lifetime Achievement Award and removed his wife Jody as a speaker. I don't really understand why she's being punished if he's the one being accused, but...
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I mean, it maybe depends on what the crimes actually involved. Like if she was...
She could have been complicit somehow.
Or if she knew and didn't, I don't know, right? Like what happened, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe she knew and didn't say shit, or maybe she enabled. Oh, we're getting into it.
We'll find out. So don't think for a second that this is a harsh reaction to unproven accusations. You can see the proof of his total fucking creepiness on Instagram, where in 2014, he took a picture of a group of unsuspecting teenage girls from behind and said, quote, "A gaggle of teenagers and their lovely legs." The girls in the photo are about 14 to 16 years old, and he was 54 at the time.
That's fucking disgusting.
Yeah. So he claims he meant no harm, and maybe he didn't, but why did he even think it?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Ew. People say stupid shit sometimes, and I get that, but then don't defend what you've said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the kind of behavior is something that Jody repeatedly warned him could be easily misconstrued.
It's not misconstrued, though, at that point.
No, but when he's claiming that he didn't mean anything by it and whatever, and she's like, can't you see
Yeah.
what it looks like to everyone else?
Yeah.
So staff members of Cannabis Culture brought concerns of his behavior to Jody, and he was soon asked to not come to the stores anymore.
Makes sense to me, yeah.
Which, good on her. If her employees are like, he makes us uncomfortable, good on her for her to be like, you're not welcome here anymore. Yeah. January 16th, he wrote a very long Facebook post trying to explain himself and apologized to Jody for the pain his stubbornness had caused. So I suggest you read it, and we'll have the link available on the website. But what I suggest you pay attention to is that he says, quote, "If you felt bad for something that I did to you, I would feel bad about that. Apologize and be sincere." End quote. Okay. Yep.
What does that even mean?
He's just saying, like...
No, I mean, I appreciate what it means, but, like, here's your not apology.
No, what he was saying there was, if I did something to offend you, like, please let me know, and, like, give me a chance to apologize, and we can talk about it. Okay, cool, yeah, that's nice. But 2 days later, he had another post, also on Facebook, basically bitching about the people making complaints against him and how it's not his fault that they changed their perception on something that occurred a decade earlier. Like, you fucking blew it, man. He can say all he wants about the accusers ruining his legacy, but the fact of the matter is that he's the one that ruined it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not them ruining it. And Jody, someone who he claims to care about so much and trust so much, repeatedly tried to warn him. And he's not listening.
Yeah,
you know?
No, for sure.
And I mean, I would just hope that, like, he's screwed himself over. He's ruined his legacy.
Yeah.
But I would hope that he hasn't ruined hers as well.
I agree,
because as far as legalization laws have come, she should be remembered for fighting as much as him.
Yeah.
Without being a fucking creepy weirdo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's the one that's continued the business. And she's the one that's followed the laws that she helped make.
Yeah.
She's not being a fucking
moron
weirdo. But yeah, so she's had to deal with the backlash from his creepy bullshit.
Yeah. It's unfortunate for her then, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my extradition case.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, growing up in Metro Vancouver, I've definitely heard his name many times.
Yeah, I was just looking at his Instagram while you were talking, and just, I don't know.
It's weird.
I don't know. It's just at what point do you grow up? Just face the facts. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. And you said that him and his wife are estranged now. Yeah, well, good for her, I guess.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Alrighty. Well, we'll get ready for the next case then.
That's it. So for my extradition case, I am picking Issei Sagawa, I'm going to go with. And for the beer, my boss actually recommended this. It's called Hitachino Nest by Kiuchi Brewing. Obviously, my dude's from Japan, hence all the words I'm mispronouncing. It's 5.5% alcohol. It's from Kunusu Nakashi, Ibaraki, Japan. And the caption on it said, "Ale brewed with spices and orange juice."
Yeah, it's a white ale.
Yeah, I'm going to let Beck open. Nice.
Wow.
That was great. And the bottles are like cute. There's a little white owl on it.
It's a hoot.
I'm lying. The owl's actually white and red, but it's cute. Oh, there's actually some more English on the bottle. It says, "Wheat beer brewed with coriander, orange peel, and nutmeg. A refreshing beer with spicy notes and soft flavor and mild acidity produced by wheat malt." Wheat.
Perfect. Well, this one is definitely very, very cloudy orange, the white head. I can barely see my fingers. It's mostly just a shadow I can see behind the beer. It's got definitely that, the spices in the aroma. A little bit grainy.
I actually like this beer.
Not a lot of fruit going on in the nose. It almost smells a little grassy.
It's the wheat.
I'm noticing that their English that they used is British English. So like Canadian English, not American English.
So it was nutmeg?
So real English.
No, it's nutmeg.
Real English.
But flavor is spelled as it should be, with a U.
Yeah.
Same like color, with a U.
So the flavor is definitely quite grassy. It's got some spices that you expect from the white ale, a wheat beer. A little bit of wheat notes, a little grainy.
Wheat?
I love a wheat beer.
It's interesting though. It's really, really grassy for the style. Kind of weird. This one's 5.5% alcohol. I don't think that was mentioned.
Yep, it was.
Okay. I wasn't listening to Nita. Whatever.
You don't listen to me during the beer talk, which is actually pretty okay. I don't know shit. But I like this one.
No, it's not bad. It's just not what I expect from a white ale. That's all. It's way grassier than this style usually calls for, but that's not a bad thing. It's just not my favorite of the style.
Fair.
Yeah. But I've had beers from this brewery before, and they make some really tasty beers. So I don't hold that against them. And, I mean, who knows how friggin' fresh this beer is, because a Japanese...
Oh, I just pulled it out of the fridge today. A
Japanese craft beer in Canada, it's always interesting to see how long it's been sitting.
Well, on it says H.19.06D. So I'm going to go with, I don't know.
I mean, that could be June.
Let's call it June 19.
June 2019, but who knows what the hell that means.
The sixth day of 2019 H.
The hard part with a lot of breweries around the world used to do best by dates. And now a lot of breweries are starting to do packaged on dates.
Yeah.
So
you have to do the math yourself.
We have to figure out.
Well, you can't do a best by date because it depends how it was stored.
Yeah, but I mean...
You know, have a best by date. If I've been storing it on the friggin' windowsill for a month, then I've screwed that over,
a lot of people don't like it because, like, an IPA should be drank fresh. A really strong beer, you can hold on to for years.
Yep.
So I don't know if this is even a date when the beer was made or bottled or whatever, or if it's just a random number on the bottle, but who knows. But let's get into the story.
Let's get right into my guy. He's fucking awful. So, Sagawa was born in Kobe, Hyogo Prefecture, Japan. His parents were noted to be very, very wealthy. He was born prematurely, reportedly actually small enough to fit in the palm of his father's hand.
Wow.
Same.
But you were a twin, right? So
I still am, yep.
Wait, sorry, yes, you are... I'm going to go back to the story.
I think your sister's still alive.
And immediately he developed enteritis, a disease of the small intestine. He eventually recovered after several injections of potassium and calcium in saline.
You just put a banana in the crib with him. Good luck.
Banana for scale, so you can see how big he is. Sorry.
For potassium, obviously.
And scale.
Oh, God. Sagawa's first experience, cannibalistic desires, well, he was actually in first grade.
Oh, my.
And this is something he actually said, that it was the first time seeing another male's thigh. Yeah. He just thought, what would it taste like if it was that thigh? In an interview with Vice many years later, Sagawa reported that as a youth, he also partook in bestiality with his dog and experienced cannibalistic desires for women. I know I had just mentioned Vice documentary. There's a crazy documentary on him from Vice. They killed it. Lots of my stuff is pulled from there. I definitely recommend if you're interested into like this kind of weirdness. It's pretty good Vice documentary. When Issei was 24, he's living in Tokyo. He followed a tall German woman home. He broke into her apartment while she was sleeping with the intent to cannibalize her by slicing off part of her buttocks and sneaking away with a small part of the flesh. However, she awoke, and he claims that she pushed him to the ground. He was captured by police shortly after and charged with the attempted rape. He didn't actually end up confessing to the police what his true intentions were about the buttocks and all of that.
You slice part of a woman's butt off, she's gonna fucking wake up.
That's just, yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
In 1977, when he was 27 years old, he moved to France to pursue a PhD in literature at Sorbonne, Paris. I was going to say Paris. Paris. He has said that while residing in Paris, and to quote him again, almost every night I would bring a prostitute home and try to shoot them. But for some reason, my fingers froze up and I couldn't pull the trigger. So this is kind of just a preface of how sick this man is. The murder that then eventually led to the extradition happened on June 11th in 1981. He was 32 years old. He had invited his classmate Renee Hartvelt to dinner at his apartment under the pretext of translating poetry for a school assignment. He planned to kill and eat her, having selected her specifically for her health and beauty characteristics which he felt he lacked. So he thought by consuming her, he would become more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, he's obviously not sane. Sagawa considered himself weak and ugly and small. He was actually 4'9".
Wow.
He was puny.
Well, he is Japanese, right?
But
That's still-
Yeah,
but still.
but they're traditionally not quite as tall as North Americans, but that's
Can
really
we do
short.
Can we do a quick Google
Yeah.
of the average height of Japanese men? It's got to be at least like 5'6" or 5'7". I feel like he's at least
5'2".
5'2". Oh, okay, so but
4'9" is the average height for women,
right, so
Japanese women. But that's not that much of a difference.
still 4'5".
Almost half a foot, I guess.
Yeah.
4'9".
So the average height of an American male is 5'9".
So Sagawa considered himself weak, ugly, and small. He's 4'9", and Becca just Googled. So the average height for males in Japan was 5'4". So still quite a bit shorter.
Yeah, definitely.
On average. He claims he wanted to literally absorb her energy. She was 25 years old and 5'10". After she'd arrived, she began reading poetry at a desk. She had her back to him. He came from behind her, shot her in the neck with a rifle. He actually fainted after the shock of shooting her and awoke later. So this is an actual thing. And he had realized that now he actually did it. So he had to finish what his plan was.
No one heard the fucking rifle in an apartment?
No, I couldn't see any of that. So it gets kind of really graphic here. And I made the mistake of Googling the images I'm about to talk of.
No.
I'm not going to include it in
No.
my little biop and all that. If you'd like to just be fucking mortified, please feel free to Google away, but it was just fucked.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Let it ruin your Google search engine.
No. So he actually had sex with her corpse, but because he couldn't bite into her skin because he figured his teeth weren't sharp enough, he actually left his apartment to purchase a butcher knife. He came back and ate various parts of her body, eating most of her breasts, face, and he actually saved other parts in his refrigerator.
Jesus.
He would then proceed to fulfill what his destiny was. He dismembered her entire body and he ate her. He removed over 7 kilograms or 15 pounds of flesh and ate her over the next 3 days. He noted by this time that there was a lot of flies that had started swarming the corpse.
Shocking.
So he took this as a sign that he, and I quote, lost Renee. And I quote, he realized the honeymoon was over.
Oh my God.
What the fuck?
He then used a hatchet to chop her into pieces that would fit into a suitcase he had bought specifically for this purpose. Yet even as he dismembered her, he grew excited, so he used her hand to masturbate. He then also figured that he should chew on her nose, and he actually pointed out saying that he remembered what the cartilage sounded like while he was chewing through her nose.
Oh God.
He said that he often thought about just chewing on her lips specifically, so he did remove that as well and set it aside for later enjoyment. Another thing that he also said that he did is he really wanted her tongue. However, and I'm going to quote him here, "I can't open her lower jaw, but I can reach in between her teeth. Finally, it comes out." So he cut off her tongue, popped it into his mouth, and watched himself chewing in the mirror. And then he went for her eyes.
He's so fucked.
Yeah, this guy is seriously fucked.
I
Like
feel
we've done
like
a
we should have
cannibalism
warned. We should have
episode,
warned at the
but
beginning.
wow.
I did say that it's graphic, this part.
An understatement.
Yeah. The final step was for him to explore the internal organs, obviously. He actually tried to put his hands into the internal organs, but his hands were stung by the digestive acids. So he decided to stop because it hurt. And as I mentioned earlier, obviously he had a hatchet to cut her apart, and the first thing he said he cut off was her head. It's so bad. He grabbed the hair and hung the head in front of him, an experience that in retrospect could cause him to say, and I quote, "At this point realize he's a cannibal."
What?
Yeah, just realizing
Delayed
now.
response.
Yeah, no fucking shit.
Yeah. So I had mentioned kind of before going into all the gnarly details that he took photographs of her at each eating stage. He then attempted to dump her body in a lake in the Bois de Boulogne. I'm sure it's not like pronounced like the salami, but I'm going to go with that. But he was actually seen in the act and arrested by French police.
Good.
Yes. I'm pretty into like gruesome weirdness and all that, but I highly suggest don't look at the pictures if you don't want to see it. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
No.
That's me. I don't want to.
Neither do I.
Thank you for giving us the option, Nina.
Just don't.
Mm-hmm. This is the kind of stuff that we won't put on our page.
No.
But if you are morbidly curious, like Nina is.
I assumed bad because I've seen bad from like previous, like, I mean, you had that one head on a platter with that, like,
yeah, that was.
so that was fine. That was cool compared to this.
Mm-hmm.
This is just fucked up shit.
Because that was to the point it seemed fake.
Yeah. This he didn't know. Mm-hmm. So naturally he was arrested, obviously. There was also a part that I noted where he said that he struggled carrying the suitcases because she was still so heavy and he's so weak.
Wow.
Anyways.
You gotta get the 360-degree wheels. Must have in luggage.
I mean, maybe you just shouldn't do this? I don't know.
Yeah. That's
so
good too.
His, as I had mentioned earlier, his family is really wealthy. So his father provided a lawyer for his defense. After being held for 2 years awaiting trial, he was found legally insane and unfit to stand trial by the French judge, obviously. The judge's name was Jean-Louis Bruguière, who ordered him to be held indefinitely in a mental institution. Sagawa's subsequently publicity likely contributed to the French authorities' decision to deport him to Japan, where he was immediately committed to Matsusawa Hospital. Examining psychologists, they all declared him sane and found sexual perversion was his sole motivation for murder.
Oh, you can be sane and fucked up.
Yeah.
Because if they call him insane, quote unquote, then he may not be criminally responsible. Mm-hmm. They're still saying he's criminally responsible, right?
Right. They could have decided that based on the amount of planning that he'd done and the previous
rape
intention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's batshit crazy, but he's still criminally responsible, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not sure of the medical.
You got to be careful because
what you said, but yeah.
Like in Canada, if you're not criminally responsible, then after a certain amount of years, you can be released without a record. I don't know about Japan.
That
we got
on the bus who decapitated.
We covered him
a
a long
free
time
man.
ago.
Yeah, and now he's free.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
So that's the thing. Like these distinctions can be a very big thing.
I know. It's totally bogus, though.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, the psychologist declared him sane and just found the act to be sexual perversion. Because charges in France technically were dropped, the French court documents were sealed and were not released to Japanese authorities. Consequently, Sagawa could not legally be detained in Japan. He checked himself out of the hospital on August 12th in 1986, and he remains a free man to this day.
What the hell?
I'm going to quote him again. I was determined to eat someone before I was too old, before my passion died out. Mm-hmm.
There's no right age to do that.
No, there isn't. No.
Well,
the right age is you crash on a mountain in a plane and you're going to die, and the only way to live is to eat someone alive. You know, the movie Alive, which is based on a true story. Mm-hmm. Survival is the only reason to eat a human being.
And even then, I think I'd rather die.
But I think there's also a different... I don't want to get into it. Fantasizing about his eventual crime is something Issei shared with many serial killers. Though he was not a serial killer himself. He imagined killing and cannibalizing a woman throughout his life. He considered it a task he would one day need to do. He said that he actually drew inspiration from Sleeping Beauty, viewing it as a tale of cannibalistic witch, and that he always dreamt of eating a beautiful woman as a way to show her how much he loved her, which he even confessed to a psychiatrist at one point.
That's pretty fucked up.
I know.
I'm not getting that connection.
I usually joke and like, haha, and I'm single, but I'd rather be single than be with this fucking weirdness.
Yes, you would.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the extradition and the issue. So between 1986 and 1997, he was frequently invited to be a guest speaker and commentator. In 1992, he appeared in Hasayu Sato's exploitation film Uva Kazuma, which is The Unfaithful Wife, Shameful Torture. He also appeared in other as a sadosexual voyeur. Sagawa has actually written books about the murder he committed. He has also written restaurant reviews for Japanese magazines and spas. Sagwa can no longer find...
Well, anyone with a Yelp account has written those reviews.
That's true. I used to be a Yelp Elite member.
I'm going to Yelp about this later. No.
Yeah.
Sagwa can no longer find publishers for his writing, and he has struggled to find employment. Yeah.
Good.
He was nearly accepted by a French language school because the manager was impressed by his courage in using his real name, but the employees protested and he was rejected.
Good.
Like, so what? He used his real name, so that's... Anyways, fucking crazy. In 2005, Sagawa's parents died. He was prevented from attending their funeral, but repaid their creditors and moved into public housing. He received welfare benefits for time. In the same interview I mentioned before with Vice, he said that being forced to make a living while being known as a murderer and cannibal was a terrible punishment.
Fuck you.
In 2013, he was hospitalized from a cerebral infraction, which permanently damaged his nervous system. Since being released, he has been under the full-time care of his brother.
I was going to ask if he had siblings.
Yes. Yeah, there was another part I saw in the Vice documentary where he also had remembered that one, because I guess times were tough, and that one of his brothers was boiled and they all had to eat them, the family, but I couldn't find anything that actually proved that he had this other brother that was murdered by his family. So
that sounds like
bullshit.
What's that movie? The
Hansel and Gretel
prequel to... You should... Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Hannibal?
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Red Dragon.
Red Dragon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dragon. That's what that sounds like. He watched that movie and then said that, and no.
Sagwa hasn't denied anything, not even in the slightest. He openly admits to killing and eating the 25-year-old Dutch girl. To quote him, he confesses, "I killed her and I ate her fresh." And it was always noted that he said this, like, really mild and in an undisturbed manner. Like, yeah, I did that. A lot of the reports are saying, obviously, he pays to be really rich. His father, as I had mentioned, Akira Sagawa, is the president of Kurita Water Industries in Tokyo. He eventually worked out a deal in 1984 to have Sagawa transferred to the Matsuzawa Psychiatric Hospital in Japan. The superintendent there believed that he was sane and ought to be in prison. But he only remained there for 15 months before he was granted, full freedom, like I'd said earlier.
Japan is just like everywhere else. If you have money, it doesn't matter how guilty you are.
Yeah. What made the situation worse was that he reveled in what he did, and he was really happy to tell anyone about it. Television talk shows, all of that. He actually agreed to appear in several Japanese pornography films, and he wrote 4 novels. One in which he describes the details of the murder. It actually sold over 200,000 copies.
That's fucked up.
Essentially, he just got away with murder.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that our podcast premise is reporting on true crime, but we're anti-criminal.
Crime.
Oh, God,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The idea that this criminal is making money off of the horrible things that he did is so fucking wrong.
The only criminal would be okay with making money off of his crimes is if what his crime is, we think is stupid because it shouldn't be a crime.
Like selling to Live Crew.
Exactly.
For example. That is not a real crime.
Or selling pot, which has been proven to have lots of medical benefits. Like, I don't consider that a crime, and there's a lot of people in the United States that shouldn't be in prison for that.
That's for damn sure.
For fucking
That's
life.
That's for damn sure.
Go back to the last episode, or last story.
How much tax money is being spent everywhere? No, I don't want to single out the states here.
Well, but the problem with the states is that their prisons are for profit.
Not all of them.
Most.
Oh my God.
Most.
Yeah.
So they're making profit off of these people that did something that shouldn't
Isn't
be
a crime
bullshit.
anymore.
It's
Yeah.
bullshit.
and isn't a crime in a lot of states now. Back
Sorry,
to you.
Nina. We didn't mean to hijack your
Back to Japan.
your
That's
case.
a lot
It's still
nicer.
illegal in Japan.
It's a lot nicer than the quote I'm going to get into to finish my story off. So
Here we go.
We can talk about that weird shit. Sagwa enjoys being, of course, as I mentioned, the focus of many tabloid media, granting interviews, making videos where he indulges in his curiosities. He has sometimes said he'd like to also get closer to someone who has also eaten human flesh. He apparently also finds the attention really amusing, as he quotes himself, doesn't actually feel he did anything wrong.
What?
He, and I quote,
Boo.
said, "The public has made me the godfather of cannibalism." He also said, "And I'm happy about that."
I'm sorry, but
I'd
there's
be happy
people
to punch
I
you in the neck.
definitely would think of before him for the Godfather of cannibalism.
Mm-hmm.
Dahmer, no. So, yeah, let me end with some eerie last words of his, and last words that I care to talk about. He's still alive. I would like to invite any woman who wants to kill me to step forward. Beautiful women only. That would be the ideal way for me to die. Maybe they can shoot me up with morphine so that I don't feel any pain, although I guess the pain is part of the pleasure. Dying instantly is so boring, so I want to savor the process of being killed. An alternative would be to drown in female saliva. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be covered all over in woman's spit? If I could die drowning in it, that would be my ultimate dream come true. I'm a cowardly man who killed another person, yet I can't face killing myself.
I can find some women that want to
So I guess dying at the hands of a woman would be my way to redemption.
That wouldn't be redemption.
I can find some women,
be
I'm
such
sure,
an
that would want to
idiot.
kill him, though.
Sitting across from you.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Ugh.
So
That the idea
mean-
of that much saliva is just. Bleh.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
just kidding.
Bleh.
But yeah, the Vice documentary is really, really good. Lots of information about him. I think it's a unique case because it's super, super gruesome. He absolutely does not deny doing any of it.
I have definitely heard
That's
of
but
him
so
before.
there's
I-
absolutely nothing they can do about it.
He is in pop culture in Japan, right? Like, everyone
That's
knows
so
about
fucked.
him.
It's completely, but everyone knows about him here as well, right? Like there's so many interviews. Everyone eats this up, right? Like,
That was
I didn't.
poor.
Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Yes, I didn't mean it.
Accidental.
Yeah, sorry. But I mean, like everyone really. I don't even know where to go from that. But you get what I'm trying to say, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's such a phenomenon that, like, how is
They
he
lap
talking
it up.
about it? Because even with Dahmer, he never went into this, right? Like,
Yeah.
No.
not that I want to say Dahmer had some kind of remorse because he's a sick fucking individual, but this is a whole other level of fucked upness.
I don't think Dahmer was also looking for the level of public
Attention,
that this guy's looking for.
Yeah, I
No.
agree. I think for him it was a very personal
private thing.
satisfaction.
But I mean,
whatever.
some of the characteristics play a part where he wanted to have these men be a part of him and never be alone,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is something that Issei also matches. However, Issei had the pleasure of being extradited, and there's nothing in Japan that can happen
Yeah.
if France doesn't release the
Oh, of
court
course,
findings.
yeah.
But that's not going to
So-
happen, right?
That's like the worst criminal loophole
Yeah, it is.
ever.
Yeah, but I mean,
Probably not ever, sadly, but
No, but it's a pretty bad
and
one.
just
like
to be
a top
clear,
10.
we're not saying that Dahmer is any less fucked or horrible.
Oh, God, no.
whatever.
No.
But
He
just
wasn't looking for that
different.
publicity.
Just different.
I think it's a different psyche, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, we can
Yeah.
put cannibalism as the consuming flesh, whatever. We get it. We get what it is, but different.
Yeah, I would say Dahmer's more like, yes, what I did was wrong, but I did do it.
I had
but
to
that
do it.
This guy was like, I don't think it's wrong, is
No. I mean, that was his
boggling,
way of
mind-boggling.
loving this woman and being part of this, whatever. Anyways, so that's my story.
Wow.
Don't Google the pictures.
I'm glad that we have another story to come before we break for dinner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
For my story, we're going to do The Merchant of Death.
I thought you were going to say The Merchant of Venice.
No. So The Merchant of Death to the Lord of War. This is a story of Viktor Bout.
Ooh, extradition. Let's do it.
Yes, and so just to make it a little more tied into the beer, he is an arms dealer. So this is the 20-pounder double IPA from Driftwood Brewery, and the 20-pounder was a 20-pound cannon, so that was my tie-in. And this is a 9% alcohol strong beer, double IPA.
So I've seen this beer a few times while I'm shopping for pairings, but I could never... I mean, the artwork on it is really amazing. We'll have a picture,
Yeah.
obviously. But I could never figure
Why
out
is
a
there-
pairing for it, you know what I mean?
Why
But
is there
it's
a
awesome.
horse?
Because
What do you
it's going back pirate times and everything.
Is it Pirate Times? Just
Yeah,
'cause
look
it's
at it. Look at the
Is that a
pirate, on the
pirate?
front.
It's not a pirate. What makes it a pirate?
The
I don't know,
pirate
maybe.
hat?
I think it's just colonial.
It's a freaking
It
pirate.
can't be
on
a
the front.
pirate if there's
not
a
a
horse. There's no horses on boats.
Duh.
No.
Idiot.
Except in that Pippi Longstocking movie. That was weird.
Haven't seen it.
No.
All right. I don't know.
Anyways.
No one will get that reference, but if you do, you'll be excited. You'll know what I'm talking about. That obviously fake horse, and then it's floating. And you know what I'm talking about.
Good thing she does, because I have no fucking clue.
Me neither, but I usually don't know what's going on. I'm just happy to be here.
You're so young, Nina.
Yeah, there was a horse, but it is definitely a pirate with a huge hole in his stomach, which is probably getting shot by a 20-pound cannon.
Not a pirate.
It's a pirate hat.
No.
Napoleon wasn't a pirate. He had that hat.
Should have been. All right, this beer is
Orange.
Slightly cloudy with orange. You can see your fingers through it, though. It's sort of an off-white head. The nose is kind of herbal with lots of sort of fruity flavors, probably a little bit tropical.
I thought you were going to shout back to the last case and say chewy.
Notes of grain. I did say it's from Driftwood Brewery, didn't I? Yeah, I think so. Shout out, Julie. Definitely it's definitely got some resin and pith. You like the pith there, Nina?
No.
Yes.
We're friends off. And I just Googled colonial heart because I'm
God.
trying to say hat.
It's got some tropical notes, definitely some citrus notes too. It's bitter without being a huge punch in the face. It's a little more fruity than bitter. It hides the fact that it's like 9% alcohol really well, in my opinion at least. Maybe it's the alcohol I've already had today. I don't know.
I don't know. It doesn't taste piratey to me. It tastes just like colonial good beer. I don't know.
I like it.
It's, what's
It's
that?
a big-ass beer.
No.
I don't know what the flavor is, but there's a lot of it.
No.
What is that?
Like I said, there's like pine and resin and tropical fruits and citrus.
What tropical fruits are in this?
It's kind of mango-y and maybe a little bit of pineapple. And it's all in my glass now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't hate it, but
Jeez, wow.
I'm just confused with what flavors I'm supposed to be feeling and what century I'm supposed to be in while drinking it.
Yeah. IPAs are never my favorite, and especially a double IPA. It's so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's honestly just like swimming in my Invisalign because I didn't take them out to drink.
At least it's not a huge, like, bitter pine bomb, which is what you really didn't like. The old double IPAs, at least there's a little more fruit in this than there was in those old ones.
It's still too much for me.
It's very gassy also.
Damn beer. Like all good spooks, there is little known about Viktor Bout's childhood. The United Nations and Viktor claim he was born in the city of Dushanbe, Tajik SSR, or the USSR now, the capital of Tajikistan. South African Intelligence Agency has him listed as being from the Ukraine. Even his date of birth is up for debate, but it is widely accepted that he was born on January 13th, 1967. Viktor was fluent in many languages including Russian, Portuguese, English, French, Arabic, Persian, and Esperanto. I had to look up what Esperanto was because I had never heard of it.
Same.
It is a language that has no country naming it as an official language.
It's like Pig Latin.
But it is spoken in Central and Eastern Europe, East Asia, and South America.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm from Eastern Europe, and I don't recognize this.
He was even in the Dushanbe Esperanto Club in the 1980s. Viktor served in the Soviet Armed Forces, but as with his upbringing, there is little known about his time while he served. It is known, though, that he graduated from the Military Institute of Foreign Languages. At one time, he had a website that claimed that he was a translator with the rank of lieutenant.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a rank as a translator?
Well, he's still a military officer, right?
I thought he was a pirate. I'm just kidding.
No. Actually, he really is a pirate, so that kind of fits. It is said that he was in Angola in the late 1980s on a military operation that was helping the MPLA, or People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, fight the Angolian Civil War. It was stated he was only in the country for a few weeks. Most think he was discharged from the military in 1991 with the rank of lieutenant colonel. So he's moving up.
Like Colonel Sanders?
Yeah, exactly. Colonel Sanders, yes.
Where? Can I ask a dumb question?
Mm-hmm.
What's the country?
Angola? It was part of the USSR, so it's part of the original Russian Federation.
The Russias?
But,
okay.
So it's either in Europe or Asia. Because Russia
Eurasia.
was, yeah. But he could also have been a major in the GRU, Russia's largest foreign intelligence agency, or an officer in the Soviet Air Forces. He could have just graduated from the Soviet military intelligence training program, or he could have been a KGB agent. This guy was like a real spook.
That's kind of cool, though. I mean, he's super mysterious. You don't get that very often anymore anyways.
What we do know is that he did start up an air freight business after leaving the military. Well, at least on paper, he left the military. Who knows?
So interesting.
Yeah. He would begin the air freight company Air Cess, C-E-S-S, that was located in Africa, conveniently soon after the fall of the Soviet Union. The company would fly 4 Antonov AN-8 planes in Angola, and this was because it was the only country at the time that would allow these planes to be used for civilian freight at the time, because they were a Russian military transport plane.
Like big cargo planes or something?
Huge cargo plane, yeah. This was a Russian-designed military transport aircraft that first went into operation in 1958 and was only retired in 2004. So it was around for a long freaking time.
2000, wow. I keep thinking like the 2000s were like a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like 1990 was like 10 years ago, not 30
amazing.
Years ago.
Victor was doing a lot of legal business with his airline, something that most good criminals seem to do, as you need a good front. His airline would fly air freight for the French government, United Nations, and the United States. These shipments would be comprised of flowers, frozen chickens, as well as UN peacekeepers, French soldiers, and even African heads of state. But at the same time, he was also earning the nickname of the Sanctions Buster.
Sanctions Buster.
Yes.
Interesting, okay.
This nickname would come from the fact that he was being implicated in arms movement in Africa. These arms movement would be in contravention to the United Nations arms embargo in the countries of Angola, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. He would also get a different nickname in The Merchant of Death.
That's cool.
Victor freely admits to being in Afghanistan many times in the 1990s, but of course, according to him, none of these trips were to sell weapons to Al-Qaeda or the Taliban.
It's just going back to that nickname, though, like Merchant of Death, that's pretty fucking sick. Yeah. It's a pretty good nickname compared to some of the other ones. Obviously, he's Bad News Bears, but it's a good one.
Definitely. He would begin trading arms in the pre-Taliban government of Afghanistan. They would become the Northern Alliance and were fighting the Taliban and had lost control of all but 10% of the country. These shipments of weapons were of small arms and ammunition. In 2000, a United Nations report stated, Bulgarian arms manufacturing companies had exported large quantities of different types of weapons between 1996 and 1998 on the basis of forged end-user certificates from Togo. And that with only one exception, the company Air Cess, owned by Viktor Bout, was the main transporter of these weapons from Burgas Airport in Bulgaria. So for people like me that don't know what an end-user certificate is, these are documents used in international transfers, including sales and arms, provided as aid to certify buyers of the arms. And this is the final person that's getting these guns, so it's not like you're selling it to someone, but they'll sell it off to someone else and down the line. The 90s would also see Victor's name formally mentioned in connection to arms dealing. These weapons would be sold to UNITA, United Nation for the Total Independence of Angola, that were fighting the Angolan Civil War. This was the opposing group fighting against the MPLA that he had been working with when he was still with the military. So just, he doesn't give a shit.
No. Wherever the money is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Victor using his airline to deal arms either, as Ahmed Kabir is said to have hired his transport company to move weapons into Africa from Eastern Europe. These weapons had end-user certificates for the nation of Zaire, but it would turn out that these guns were heading to the UNITA in Angola. Starting in 1993, the United Nations had passed Resolution 864 that put an embargo that prohibited the importation of arms to Angola.
I'm really impressed that you haven't said arugula even once. I keep hearing you say that, and I'm like, ooh, vegetables. Not that I'd ever be like, ooh, vegetables.
Messy lettuce.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good on pizza with prosciutto. Okay.
He was also conducting personal meetings with Charles Taylor in Liberia. These meetings were to supply arms to the first Liberian Civil War. Victor would begin to work with a Syrian-born man named Richard Shackley in 1993.
Also known by Dick Chuckles.
In 1985, Richard was hired...
That was so fucking funny. How are you reading after that? Give me like a fucking snort laugh out of that. Dick Chuckles. Imagine that was that could be someone's real name. I'm sorry if your name is fucking Richard Dick Chuckles.
I was trying so hard not to, but yes,
I love
it's
you.
Fucking hilarious.
Dick Chuckles.
In 1995, Richard was hired to be the commercial manager of the Sharjah International Airport in the United Arab Emirates. This was the location of the new free trade zone that had been opened up by the Emirate. The United States would call Richard Chakri's Victor's financial manager, as he would use the free trade zone for the arms dealing. When the invasion of Afghanistan happened in 2001, Victor would make his way to Russia to categorically deny that his freight company was bringing weapons to the Taliban, but only the Northern Alliance. So he was only trying to help the original group that was trying to hold Afghanistan.
I mean, was that him trying to like make that be a better thing? Like,
well,
both are bad.
No, because the Northern Alliance was trying to fight against the terrorist groups that had come out of the Gulf War.
But isn't it kind of backwards that he first supports the terrorist groups and I goes, okay, takes the back seat?
This guy is definitely a fucking arms dealer, a piece of shit. But he's trying to claim that he's only working with the group that's trying to fight to keep the terrorists out.
Yeah.
The ones that own 90% of Afghanistan at the time. So it is rumored that he was selling planes to the Taliban, though, which would be very helpful in the struggle for power. Of course, people still deal with the outcome of the war in Iraq with all of the insurgencies that came out of it. Between 2001 and 2014, it is said that Victor was linked to moving Al-Qaeda gold and cash out of the war zone with his planes. This money would, of course, go to fund terrorism. Victor and his network are said to have sold surface-to-air missiles that were used to attack an Israeli plane during its takeoff back in 2002. The sale of these missiles was to Kenya. Africa was a busy place for him, as he was also suspected of selling arms to the Democratic Republic of the Congo during the Second Congo War that took place between 1998 and 2003. Wow. It's a long war. Mm-hmm. It is thought at this time that he was probably employing up to 300 people and running 40 to 60 planes.
It's a lot.
This is not a small operation at all. There are varying reports that Victor was either in Lebanon or Russia in 2006. At the time, he was said to have been in Lebanon meeting with Hezbollah officials working on arms deals with the Lebanon War. 2014 would see both Victor and Richard Shackley open a new airline called MR Airlines.
What?
Dick Chuckles? No. MR Airlines that would be centered in Tajikistan. This would be used as a money laundering vehicle.
No shit.
A spook like this can be hard to lock up, but the investigation was beginning in the 2000s. Victor was good at evading the authorities, though, as he would always own multiple freight companies and would continuously register his planes to other companies he owned, making it harder to track. He would just keep fucking moving the planes around his different companies he owned. Not a dumb guy.
It's like a creative genius, but like bad genius. Bad.
Well, evil genius. Yeah, totally.
Oh, like Pinky and the Brain, and he's the brain.
Yeah, exactly.
And Pinky was his penis.
Gross.
Wow.
Had a nice little chuckle there.
Full circle.
That's what I'm about.
He made sure to move around so that he was personally hard to find. Authorities think that he lived in the following countries over the years: Belgium, Lebanon, Rwanda, Russia, South Africa, Syria, and the United Arab Emirates. In 2000, there would be charges laid against him, but it was in absentia, but it was in regards to foreign documents in the Central Africa Republic. 2002 would see Belgium authorities ask for Interpol's red notice to be issued for Viktor about his money laundering activities. According to Interpol, a red notice is a request to law enforcement worldwide to locate and provisionally arrest a person pending extradition, surrender, or similar legal actions. This red notice would end up being dropped in part to the fact that he had no fixed address.
So technically, just for my understanding, so my case and Beck's case, that wouldn't be a thing because we knew where our guys was. They just weren't being extradited. Yeah. Okay.
This is Interpol's trying to find a person, so it's a worldwide. Anyone that will deal with Interpol.
What's the name of that lady who traveled? Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Yeah. It's like, where in the world is this guy?
Yeah. Where in the world is Viktor
Bout?
Yo, we can. That's a good jingle. We should go with that.
And our new
intro is going to be.
We'll get back to him at some point. But
okay.
No. The United States would issue an executive order 13,348 in July 2004 that would freeze all of his U.S. assets. The order would refer to him as a businessman, dealer, and transporter of weapons and minerals. It would state that he had close ties to fellow arms dealer Charles Taylor. His time on the outside would finally come to an end when he was in Bangkok, Thailand in March 2008. He was caught up in a sting operation as part of an American-initiated Interpol Red Notice on March 6, 2008. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency were working in concert with the Royal Thai Police on a basis that Viktor was conspiring to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Viktor had made the mistake of trying to sell arms to people he understood were part of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia Rebels, or FARC.
Lord Farquaad is here. Lord Farquaad. He's like an onion. You have to peel back the layers. Bigly.
Jesus Christ.
Did he sell any huge arms?
Once in custody, the American ambassador would begin the formal extradition request under their extradition agreement with Thailand. After some delays, his extradition case would begin on September 22nd, 2008. He was charged with trying to supply arms to the FARC that would be used against the U.S. forces stationed in Colombia. The day after his arrest in Bangkok, he would be charged with even more, including charges that Bout was conspiring to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So when it comes to extradition, you're extradited to the country where the offense was committed, not necessarily the country where you're from to face justice in that country. Is that correct?
The country that is charging you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, where the offense occurred.
It didn't have to be where it occurred because he never performed a crime in the United States, it doesn't sound like, but the United States were actively involved with his crimes. Like, he was actively supplying people that were considered terrorists to the United States. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's why the United States were looking for him.
But then, so when you're being extradited,
mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily back to your own country.
No.
It's to the country that's putting you in the shit.
And it's only going to happen if you have an extradition treaty with that country. It's like the United States had an extradition treaty with Thailand. So the Thai government, they went through the courts. We'll get to it. But, they ended up sending him. That's why Americans will go to Mexico, because there isn't a great extradition treaty between U.S. and Mexico. So if you run there, you may not end up back in the States. And a murderer from the States will run to Canada if he can, because we will not extradite to the United States if it is a capital punishment. We will not send anyone to the United States if they're going to be murdered, because we are against capital punishment as a country. Mm-hmm. We will hold them, and if it is against our laws, we will probably put him in jail or her in jail, but we won't send them away if they're going to be killed.
Right. If they were going back to a state that doesn't have capital punishment, fine and dandy.
Or if they would agree not to have capital punishment on the charges.
Right.
Yes. But that's just Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because it's like, so what, even like with your case, right? Like, so he's in Thailand, which is fine.
Yeah.
And he's obviously not like a local or a native to Thailand.
No.
So it's interesting that they, I guess, just, you'd rather not have anything to do with him. So sure, you want him. We will kick him out of our country. But how do you guarantee that he goes to the States? Or is that part of the extradition?
Well, that's the thing. Is it's just like, what's his name now? Edward Snowden. That's an American whistleblower. Went to Russia. Because Russia will not extradite him back to the States. So he can release all of the documents he wants on the United States because they will never send him back there as long as he keeps giving information about them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, right? It's if there's no extradition treaty, they have no legal reason to send them to that other country.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
If they want to get rid of that shithead, they might just send him regardless, but they might not. So yeah, the day after his arrest, they would add extra charges, including conspiracy to provide materials to support or resources designated for foreign terrorist organizations, conspiring to kill Americans, conspiring to kill American officers or employees, and conspiring to acquire and use an anti-aircraft missile. The fight would continue to extradite Victor to the United States for trial, and in February 2009, the U.S. Congress would sign a letter asking the Attorney General Eric Holder and the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to keep his case a top priority. August 11, 2009 would see the Bangkok Criminal Court rule against the U.S. extradition case and would say it was all political and not criminal in nature. I don't know. Seems pretty criminal to me.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think that's like the age-old discussion of like, okay, well, he sold the guns, but he didn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
But he may as well have. If
he created the war, but he didn't. He didn't pull the trigger, right? At this point, his charges would be expanded to include illegal purchase of an aircraft, wire fraud, and money laundering. The failed extradition would be appealed on August 20th, 2010, and this time a higher court would rule against Viktor Bout and have him extradited to the United States. November 16th, 2010, Thai officials would hand Victor over to the US DEA agents, where he would be moved to the US. This was all happening as the Russian government protested the findings and called them illegal. Just kind of adding to the fact that we don't really believe he wasn't tied in still with the Russian government.
Yeah.
For sure.
So this next part is from Wikipedia. On 18th of November 2010, shortly after Bout's extradition to the United States, Russian President Medvedev's aide Sergei
Udarovich Prichodoko? Yeah.
Okay. Him. Said that Russia had nothing to hide in Bout's criminal case, stating, "It is in our interest that the investigation be brought to completion and Bout should answer all the questions that American justice system has." On 18th of January 2013, Russian government officials announced that judges, investigators, justice ministry officials, and special services agents who were involved in Russian citizens Viktor Bout
and Konstantin Yuroshko's
thank you, legal prosecution and sentencing to long term of imprisonment would be added to a list of U.S. officials who would be denied Russian entry visas in response to the U.S. Magnitsky Act, under which Russian officials are ineligible to enter the United States. So just adding to all the bullshit between the U.S. and Russia, basically. So this is back to my story here. It can be pretty easily extrapolated that Victor was not just a Russian citizen that was selling arms when the Russian government gets involved like this. It is rumored that he was actually working with the Russian intelligence agencies. He was also thought to have strong connections to high-ranking Russian officials. Victor would be finally convicted in Manhattan on November 2nd, 2011. The sentence would be 25 years in prison, as this was the minimum sentence allowed in the United States for conspiracy to kill U.S. citizens and officials, delivery of anti-aircraft missiles, and providing aid to a terrorist organization. You could probably spend that many years in the States for selling pot.
25 years is a lot. But I mean, to be fair, if you look at his like whole repertoire, like this is like 25 years too late.
Yeah, no shit. All right, this is from Wikipedia again. District Judge Shira Scheinlin ruled that the minimum sentence was appropriate because there was no evidence that Bout would have committed the crimes for which he was convicted had it not been for the sting operation. Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued a statement denouncing Bout's sentence as a political order. He'd be sentenced to a federal prison in Illinois that was used to house people convicted of terrorism and other serious crimes. June 2013 would see Victor's buddy Richard Chichatsky extradited to New York on charges that he conspired to buy aircraft in violation of economic sanctions. September 2013 would see Victor try and appeal his sentence, but the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New York would not overturn his conviction. They rejected that he was a victim of vindictive prosecution and that there was no legitimate law enforcement reason to prosecute him. Victor's lawyer did finally get him moved to a less horrible prison in 2016, where he would actually be able to see the sky again for the first time since being in prison. So he was locked. River. Yeah, well, he was locked into one of those awful prisons. It's almost like the Russian ones, where you never.
The gulag?
Even, yeah, exactly.
But I mean, you could just not be a piece of shit human and not go to jail, and then you can look at the sky every day.
Believe me, I agree totally. Yeah. Victor Bout's story was the basis of the movie Lord of War that came out in 2005. There was also a book called Merchant of Death, Money, Guns, Planes, and the Man Who Makes War Possible, written by Stephen Braun and Douglas Farrar, written in 2007. That's my story.
I don't feel bad for him.
No, neither do I.
No.
He is not a good person. He was involved with supplying guns to so many of the civil wars that are being fought by warlords. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not talking about good people that are trying to fight against, like the American Civil War, where it was fighting against slavery. Mm-hmm. No, we're just talking about warlords fighting against other warlords, trying to kill other fucking innocent people to take over.
Mm-hmm. I think it's always interesting when you have someone who, I think the war would have found a way to be, but I don't know that it would have been what it was if it wasn't for the access to the ammunition, to the weapons and all that, right? Like,
would it have been as bloody?
Who knows? Maybe they've found, I don't know, other ways of doing their deeds, right? But it's always interesting to be that, like, you know.
Well, yeah, they would have. Another arms dealer.
Yeah.
You know, it's just another fucking terrible
Which I'm sure is what they're thinking. If it's not me making money off of this, it's going to be someone else. So it may as well be me.
Yeah, I know. But it's just like, well, that person's doing heroin and I might as well try it because what could go wrong?
Yeah. But I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
I know what you're saying.
It's, you know.
Yeah.
Two peas in a pod, right?
Adding in the fact that a guy that wasn't a Russian citizen, technically, he was part of the USSR when he was, you know, a military officer still, but the Russian government is still trying to push for the fact that he isn't a criminal. When a government pushes that hard that you're not a criminal, you probably are, and you're probably tied in with them. Like, he is probably working with the Russians to sell arms, which the Russians are well known to do. They're well known to supply arms to lots of different campaigns against people that are fighting against the states.
Okay, but the states do it too.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
I don't know. It's just.
But that's for a different government to charge.
Okay,
I don't care who it's
someone else's problem.
Yeah, no, it is definitely because the CIA is a well-known arms dealer around the world. It's awful. It's criminal, but it's an American corporation, so they do it. And until someone catches that CIA agent and does the same thing with this guy, who was probably an agent for the Russians, probably, but until they're caught and put into jail, they're going to keep doing it.
I don't know. I don't know enough about this to like give an educated opinion, I suppose. I don't know. I just think it's bad, right? Like,
oh yeah, no,
you can't fight crime with crime. So, but no, do you know what I mean? Like,
unfortunately, the Americans have done that a lot. Like,
but I'm not even saying Americans; it's anyone in the world, right? Like, for example, if this country's helping this country by fueling it with whether it's money, guns, men to fight in their wars, whatever way you want to look at it, you're still contributing to the end result of where civilians are dying for your personal vendettas in some cases, right? Like, I don't want to exclude or just say the States or just Russia, because that's what's personally I think has been in the news a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think part of the problem is that the United States and Russia are two of the largest military forces in the world, and they also have very large secret police. They have a lot, like,
But I mean, how
The United
secret are
States-
they that we know that they exist, right? Like,
Well, we know they exist, but we have no fucking clue what they're doing currently. We know what they did years ago because things come out later, but you don't know
Yeah.
what they're doing now.
Right.
The CIA, the KGB, which in Russia, are both doing all kinds of horrible shit right now, and we might find out 10 years down the road when it comes out later.
When it's
with
declassified.
Declassified, yeah.
ignorance
But-
is bliss sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Like,
But
I just want to get into my Prius and
But-
drive safely home. Like, I don't know.
Russia, China, United States, all of these huge world powers,
Huge.
huge world powers are so involved with really, really terrible things. And we just keep letting it happen. And guys like this end up paying the price. And I mean, he was a bad person, but he was working probably, just guessing, probably for the Russian government.
But it's still a decision that you make of the type of person you wake up to be that day, right? Like,
Agreed.
I'm sure things can, maybe not in his case, but can, what's that, snowball into something more than what you intended.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But it's definitely, you're no less guilty. But when you're being sponsored by a country to do that terrible thing, it makes it worse, in my opinion, because that country is paying you to do these things.
But I think that's worse on the country, not on the person. Because
It's-
you're just
it's
like
on both.
bonus.
It's both. And that's the problem with arms dealing. Like, CIA is a massive arms dealer. Like, everyone knows about it. Unfortunately, they can keep doing it. And the same with Russia. Russia does a lot of arms dealing. This guy was probably one of the bigger arms dealers for Russia. Maybe he wasn't, but he was still a huge arms dealer.
I don't know.
Probably never find out because they spend so much money to make sure we don't know.
Yeah. Speculate.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
But still, fucking terrible human.
Yeah.
Because he was intrinsically involved with the murder of so many people. Because war is all
Bad.
about murder. Especially when it's warlords killing usually innocent people. Because a lot of these quote-unquote civil wars were just warlords fighting warlords and killing all kinds of very innocent people that were in the middle of the crossfire.
I don't like talking about Civil War. You guys know that. So
I know.
I'm staying out of this one.
I don't blame you.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/Brew Crime. You'll get early access to episodes. You'll get ad-free episodes. And now our Half Pint of Crime Patreon exclusive episodes. So shout out to our Patreon supporters, 3 Beers In podcast, Amber, Ange, Daniela, Nina's mom, the Phase of Our Life podcast, and True Crime Nana. You can also find us on all social media platforms at Brew Crime. You can email us at brewcrime@pacificbeerchat.com. Cheers.
Bye.
Till next time.
Now here is a promo from a fellow true crime or spooky podcast that we really enjoy. Hope you'll take a listen.
We were able to capture some fingerprints, but again, same as the DNA, we haven't been able to match that to anybody.
He's probably one of the biggest considerate, open-hearted people that I knew. But, you know, honestly, he had an addiction too, right?
At the writing, we can talk. There's a possibility here that there were childhood traumas.
We're trying to turn every stone to find evidence.
This is Genevieve Germain, host of True Crime Real Time. Join me on a bi-weekly dive into the lives of the missing and murdered, available wherever you listen to your podcasts. You'll never know who else you'll meet along the way.
Here's a promo from one of the podcasts in the Big Heads Media Network.
And welcome everybody to what?
Wait, Brian, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, that's right. We're supposed to be recording a promo here, aren't we?
Aren't you supposed to tell people where they can find us?
Yeah, we're What the Hops podcast based out of Buffalo, New York. We like to talk a lot about beer.
A little bit about music.
And all sorts of random things.
So be sure to go find us wherever you get your podcasts and hit up all your social medias and search What the Hops and hit that like button.
Cheers.
It sounds like instead of your highness, your doucheness.
That's a me.
And I recorded that.
Let's do this.
Okay, go.
In May of 19... No, I have to do that again. There should have been a pause there. The campaign successfully argued that the city... That's not a word.
Sounds like an STI.
Oh,
I have the stitties.
I've got the stitties.
It's like sweaty kitties. My sweaties. It's swass.
Swass?
Sweaty.
Yeah.
No, those are swoobs. Come on now.
Sorry, or swissy.
Oh, God.
Shout out Daniela, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh, Jesus.
At the end of the episode.
No, this is like dead
Prime
center.
time.
This is fucking
Okay.
peak Nina right now. Okay. Sorry. So bad.
Is that
wait.
Pina? Peak Nina?
Just keep going.
But why be sad if... No, that's not
Did
a
you just
word.
drink wrapper? Oh, it sounded like you just drank fucking
No, I was really loud.
tinfoil.
The idea of the tinfoil being in your mouth makes me
Or
want to
grazing
vomit.
on your teeth.
It was actually not in my mouth. It was...
I
on my
know.
lips.
He got stuck in his beard
But
trying to
then
make it
she
his
said
mouth.
it. You know when people like bite the end of a pencil?
Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah, me
I
too.
can't
I
stand
can't
it.
anymore.
Well, I don't now because I don't have pencils anymore, but yes.
Okay, anyway.
Sorry. Digress. What's the sound of a beer bong?
Correcting a typo. A beer bong or an actual bong? That's the song of an actual bong. Or so I've
Sorry,
heard.
bong, yes.
Or so I've heard.
You guys are offending my virgin ears.
Jesus Christ.
Do that
Sorry, that literally tasted like popcorn. I overate. I bigly overate.
Hugely over.
Hugely.
Huge bowl of popcorn.
Huge. Like my huge hands. Okay, sorry. It's fucking little puppet hands. Me. Okay, sorry.
Oh, God.
Best, greatest ever.
I'm going to start the sentence over again without the
Huge.
background belch. In 2000... Sorry, it's confusing because I just said 2000, but anyway.
My lips are so chapped, it hurts, but it's so funny. You giving me chapstick? Yeah, you are. You're the best. Left it in my other purse, but a huge mistake.
Bigly mistake.
It was huge.
Yes, it was huge. Is that orange colored?
No, it's not Tanner.
Put self-tan on my lips.
Shit.
Okay.
Oh, God.
It's only funny because we're here. No,
This is going to be a fun one to edit.
We'll post a picture of Nina's amazing visual happening right now. We'll post it later. It's huge. It's not huge.
Huge. It's because I'm down 10 pounds.
It's kind of blurry because I was laughing too
My hands
much.
look huge.
Huge. No. Do you have a
Delete.
Do you have a
I
tiny
will.
cup that's shaped like this?
Gio, give me a shot glass.
We don't have to do it right now. We can finish this story and then do it. Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, good.
Blee blee boo boo. So
They
Mark,
have deers in Saskatoon too.
that was odd.
It is what this is what she said. Yes.
This was a speed. No, fuck you guys.
Oh, it's gonna be such a long day.
Which way though? Her or me?
Column A, column B. We're both cut. Okay, let's go.
I walked into that, didn't I?
Reminds me of Lego movie. Everything is awesome.
I hated that movie.
I love that
The
movie.
Lego movie?
Sequel's not very good, but the first one's great.
What?
It's not awesome. Sort of like the song changed. Everything's not awesome.
Okay, well, what I liked about the sequel was their reference to insanely obscure movies that I've seen that are just like Jim
the Lego
Jim
movie.
Cotta.
No, that's not an obscure movie at all.
Anyway, it wasn't as good as the first one. I agree, but anywho,
Yeah, no.
way off topic.
Darkness, no parents. Let's get back to the story.
I was trying to see if I had enough chin to squish it, but
No.
I don't have enough chin.
You just have one chin.
I don't even have a chin, see?
You're all fluff.
Yes.
Could you stop it?
My goodness.
Sagawa hasn't denied anything. Not in the slightest. Sorry. Fresh.
Flesh.
Fresh.
Fresh flesh.
Fresh flesh. Ugh.
Oh, we need some glasses, don't we?
Sorry.
Sorry, I was working on
I
the
didn't
last
even pay
time, so I
attention.
didn't drink much.
I thought you were going to let a big belch go first.
Well, you missed one while you were in the bathroom.
Did I miss it, or was I just not here for it?
That was a pretty good.
All right.
Both.
So yeah,
column A, column B. See, pirate hats it's a triangle hat. That's a colonial hat.
You tell him, Nina.
Okay, well, according to Google, turn it around, it's still a triangle, so it's 3 points.
Yes, and that point is the flat part.
No, but...
All right. It's...
Okay, whatever.
Shh.
I'm talking now.
Oh, that smelled. I cupped it. Sorry. I tried to cup it to try to make it not be very loud, but then when I released the cup, it went all into my schnoz.
I released the cup.
But you know what I mean? Like, I cupped my mouth. You guys are fucking awful.
Yes, you are. Ready?
Okay.
Give me a G. Give me a U. Give me an N.
Gun?
Gun runner.
No.
All right. Duschenberg. No.
Dushanabe.
Yeah, there.
It's like wasabi, but with a T.
And the at one time he had a website that claimed,
oops,
that I already read that, but was helping the MPLA or People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola fight the. I hate when
you try to do words. Words are tough, man.
No, because
MLPA.
The MPLA is in their language, so it doesn't.
Let me try
fit our language. No, people's. I know what you mean. The People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola fight the Angolian. Victor was doing a lot of business. That was terrible English, wasn't it?
No,
I mean it wasn't the worst.
It was pretty bad.
Every time you say small arms, I just see like
Trump arms.
Pew 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 pew. Tyrannosaurus.
Yeah.
We didn't do the picture.
Really good video to show you guys.
The shot glass.
We'll do that.
Oh yeah. What do you think?
Chickaklin.
I can't see it.
Chickaklin. Oops. Copy.
There you go.
Chickaklin.
Checkley?
Checkley.
Richard Checkley.
Richard Checkley. Dick Chuckles.
Victor would begin to work with a Syrian-born man named Richard. This beer is burpy.
Yeah.
Russian President Medvedev. What the fuck's his last name?
Medvedev.
I'm going to skip his last name and middle name.
Let me try.
Shira Shenin. Oh, fucking hell. What the hell's that name?